The clock read 11:47 p.m. when Veronica heard the front door creak open. She didn't stir from the couch. The mug of tea in her hands had long gone cold, but she clutched it anyway like it still had warmth to offer. The television flickered with the soft glow of a documentary she hadn't been watching. She sat in the same outfit she'd worn all day at school, mustard blouse, navy skirt, too exhausted to change, too restless to sleep. Michael stepped in, shoulders heavy, shirt crumpled beneath his lab coat, stethoscope still swinging from his neck like a chain of bondage. His face bore the look she had come to expect, apologetic, drained, and distant. She knew that face well. It came home every night with excuses in its eyes and exhaustion in its voice. "You're still up?" he asked, his voice dry, low, almost afraid. Veronica didn't look up. "I'm always up, Michael. You're just never here to notice." He sighed, setting his keys into the bowl on the console table. The sound echoed louder than it should have in the quiet of their living room. "It was a long day," he mumbled. "Back-to-back emergencies. I haven't even had lunch." She let out a quiet, humorless laugh. "And yesterday? And the day before that?" He looked down at his shoes, as though they held the answers. Veronica rose from the couch, standing slowly like someone preparing for battle, though her voice was calm, her tone low and intimate. She stood in front of him, just inches away, and asked, "Do you know what it feels like to live with someone who's never really with you? To love someone you barely see? To have your conversations reduced to voicemail messages and unanswered goodnights?" Michael tried to hold her gaze, but the shame was loud in his silence. "I'm not angry," she said. "Just empty." He reached for her hand. She pulled away. "I had a student faint in my class today," she continued. "She hadn't eaten in 2 days. I stayed with her until her mother arrived. And as I sat there holding that child's hand, I realized, I'm becoming like you. I'm pouring out for the world and coming home to nothing." Her voice broke. "I'm drowning, Michael. And I'm drowning alone." The words hit him harder than any medical emergency ever could. He stood there, still in his sterile scent and duty-worn scrubs, suddenly unsure of what mattered most. "I never meant for this to happen," he said quietly. "You know that, right?" Veronica nodded, eyes shimmering. "But it did." Then, like divine irony, his phone rang. It buzzed between them, shrill and persistent, as though the world demanded more of him again. He pulled it from his pocket and stared at the screen. Veronica watched him. The silence between them was thick with a question she didn't dare ask out loud. Would he choose the call again? He didn't. He declined the call and slid the phone into his pocket. Then he looked up at her, eyes soft and deliberate. "Not tonight," he whispered. She blinked. "What do you mean?" "I'm staying home," he said. "Someone else will cover the shift. I've already lost count of how many nights I've left you behind. I won't let tonight be another one." Veronica didn't speak at first. She just stood there, stunned by the rare sound of him choosing her. Slowly, as if testing whether this moment was real, she stepped closer. He pulled her into his arms, and for the first time in what felt like forever, they simply stood there, together, wrapped in the quiet, in the ache, and in the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, they hadn't lost everything. And for the first time in months, they breathed each other in. The next morning was unusually quiet. Sunlight poured through the curtains, painting soft gold onto their bedroom walls. For the first time in months, Michael had slept in. No beeping pager, no rushing shower, no whispered goodbye while Veronica pretended to be asleep. She wasn't pretending today. She woke up next to him, watched the way his chest rose and fell, his lips slightly parted, his brow finally at rest. It felt surreal, familiar and foreign all at once. By the time they made it to the kitchen, there was laughter between them. Real, cautious laughter. Veronica made breakfast, and Michael actually sat down to eat it. They didn't talk about work or responsibilities, just memories, how they met, the embarrassing way he'd spilled coffee on her on their second date, how she once got jealous of a patient who kept sending him homemade cake. It was healing, but fragile things have a way of breaking when touched too soon. Around 10:15 a.m., Michael's phone rang again. He ignored it. Then it rang again. And again. By the fourth call, he frowned and picked it up. Veronica watched his face shift as he listened. His features hardened, jaw clenched, brows furrowed, lips drawn into a tight line. He didn't say much, just nodded, then hung up. "What is it?" she asked, feeling the change before he even spoke. He hesitated. That was the hospital. Veronica's heart sank. "Michael." "It's not a shift," he interrupted quickly. It's about someone." "Someone?" He looked at her, expression unreadable. "Her name's Amanda. A patient I've been seeing privately for the past few months. Terminal. Liver cancer.
Young.
Just 29. Veronica blinked. "She died last night," he said. "I wasn't there." She swallowed. "I'm sorry." Michael nodded, but the guilt in his eyes was louder than his grief. "That's not all," he continued. "Her sister came to the hospital this morning. She left a letter for me. Said Amanda asked her to bring it if anything happened." He pulled the crumpled envelope from his pocket, his name scrawled across the front in delicate handwriting. Veronica stared at it. There was something strange in the air now, a tension that hadn't been there moments ago. He opened the envelope and read silently, lips moving without sound. As he reached the bottom of the page, Veronica saw a shadow pass over his face. "What does it say?" she asked. Michael hesitated, then slowly handed it to her. The letter was short,
Poetic.
filled with gratitude for his kindness, his compassion, his attention. But the last few lines chilled her. "You were more than a doctor to me, Michael. You made me feel seen.
Cared for.
Loved, even. If things had been different, maybe in another life." Veronica felt the blood drain from her face. "Michael, what was she to you?" He didn't answer at first. His silence was long. Too long. "She was my patient," he said finally. "But it got complicated." Veronica stared at him. "Complicated how?" "I never crossed a line," he said quickly. "Not physically. But I think emotionally, maybe. I was there for her in ways I haven't been for you." The words felt like tiny knives. "I told myself I was just being a good doctor," he said. "But part of me liked how she looked at me. Like I was saving her. Like I mattered." Veronica stepped back, breath caught in her throat. "You gave her what you should have been giving me," she said. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it struck him like thunder. "I was empty," he said, trying to explain. "And she filled a space I didn't know was starving." A silence fell between them, deafening, devastating. The fragile piece of the morning shattered like glass. Veronica turned away, arms wrapped around herself, as if holding her heart together. Michael took a step forward. "I never stopped loving you, V.
I swear.
But I got lost. And I'm trying to find my way back." She didn't answer.
Not yet.
Because love, even when it survives, has to find its footing again. And in that moment, they were both standing in the rubble, unsure whether they could rebuild.
Please subscribe.
The next morning, the silence was different. Not soft or sacred like the day before. This time it was laced with tension, unfinished conversations, and a letter that now sat folded on the dining table like a ghost no one dared to touch. Veronica didn't sleep well. Her body had rested, but her mind hadn't. All night, she tossed between memories of how they got here and questions she wasn't sure she had the strength to ask. Michael, on the other hand, was up early, restless. He walked through the house like a man pacing outside a courtroom, rehearsing an apology, or perhaps an explanation. But just as he opened his mouth to say something, the sound of screeching tires and a short honk sliced through the quiet. An ambulance had pulled into their driveway. Michael's phone rang almost immediately. He picked it up, muttering quickly into the receiver. Veronica stood by the kitchen counter, staring, already knowing what this meant. "It's the hospital," he said, hanging up. "There's an emergency surgery. Woman in her late 30s. Colon cancer, stage 4. Internal bleeding. They need me now." His words tumbled out like an avalanche. He didn't wait for response. He threw on a fresh shirt, grabbed his surgical bag, and within minutes, he was at the door, adjusting his coat. He turned back, breathless. We'll talk when I get back, okay? Veronica didn't respond. He paused, as if waiting for her to say something, anything. She didn't. With a faint nod, he rushed out, letting the door click shut behind him. And just like that, he was gone again. Veronica stood in the middle of the quiet house, arms wrapped around her torso, watching as the flashing lights faded down the street. She let out a slow exhale, as though she had been holding her breath since he picked up that call.
It was Saturday.
A day she used to look forward to. She looked around the living room, neatly arranged, yet void of life. The couch where they'd laughed just yesterday morning now sat like a museum piece. The untouched tea mug was still there. So was the letter. She sat slowly, staring at the folded paper, then out the window. Another weekend. Another stretch of hours filled with no conversation, no touch, no companionship. Just the sound of her own thoughts, and maybe the TV murmuring in the background to fill the silence. She picked up her phone and scrolled. No texts from friends. No missed calls. She thought of calling her sister. Or her mum. Or maybe even taking herself out for a walk. But none of it seemed to matter. Nothing could fill the space where he should have been. Not today. And so she sat there. Again. Not angry. Just invisible. But something inside her whispered, "How long will you keep waiting like this? How many Saturdays will you surrender to silence?" She didn't have the answer yet. But she was beginning to realize she couldn't keep doing this. Not without losing herself. Please subscribe. The night had folded itself into a quiet, melancholic hush. The front door creaked open just past 1 a.m. as Michael stepped in, his shoulders slumped, his eyes heavy with exhaustion, his clothes soaked in the sterile scent of hospitals and long hours. He closed the door softly, only then realizing it had been left ajar. The living room lamp cast a warm, low glow. There, on the sofa, was Veronica, curled up, asleep in her clothes, her arms tucked beneath her head like a child who had waited longer than she could stay awake. His heart clenched. No words were spoken. None were needed. He moved toward her slowly, like approaching a fragile memory. Gently, carefully, he scooped her into his arms. She stirred a little, but didn't open her eyes. He carried her through the familiar hallway and into their bedroom, laying her down on the bed as if laying down something precious, something once broken that he wanted desperately to keep whole. He leaned in and placed a soft kiss on her forehead before slipping into the bathroom. The shower hissed quietly behind the door. Veronica lay still, her eyes now open, watching the light beneath the bathroom door, listening to the sound of water and distance. She wasn't really asleep. She had heard the door open, felt his arms lift her, heard his breath catch the moment he saw her on the couch. But she had stayed silent. When he emerged, hair damp, movements slow, Michael slid into bed beside her. He shifted close, intending to simply lie next to her, say something maybe. But before his lips could form a word, her voice, calm, quiet, rose in the darkness. "What about the operation?" He paused, surprised. "Hope I didn't wake you," he murmured, brushing her cheek. "I'm really sorry, babe." Veronica turned slightly, her voice barely a whisper. "What about the patient? Was the operation successful?" Michael exhaled, a weary smile ghosting his lips. "Thank God. We were able to save her, just in time." She looked at him, her eyes soft in the shadows.
"Thank goodness," she said.
"Well done, my love. More grease to your elbow." He opened his mouth, wanting to explain, to say more, to talk about how hard it was to be away, how he never meant to neglect her, how the days just blurred, but she stopped him gently. "No, babe," she whispered, placing a finger on his lips, playfully but firm. "It's better to save lives than to loaf around." He blinked, unsure of what to say, but before he could find the words, Veronica sat up, leaned in, and kissed his forehead. Then, looking him deep in the eyes, she smiled and said softly, "You deserve a good night's rest after a long day's work. I love you. Sleep, my hero. Good night." And just like that, the air between them softened. The space once filled with silence now hummed with a quiet understanding. They slipped into sleep, entwined not just in body, but finally in heart. Until 6 a.m., when the sharp shrill of Michael's phone shattered the calm. Another call. Another emergency. And just like that, the battle between duty and love began again. The shrill cry of the phone shattered the stillness of dawn. Michael stirred first, groaning softly as he reached over to silence the vibrating device on the nightstand. Veronica turned her face into the pillow, already sensing what it meant, but hoping, somehow, this one time it didn't. But it did. Michael sat up, eyes narrowing as he read the urgent message glowing on the screen. His face went pale. Message from Hospital Dispatch, 6:01 a.m. Dr. Michael, this is an SOS from the emergency unit. We've got a critical case on the table, a 39-year-old female patient with a ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm. The attending surgeon is unavailable due to a sudden family emergency. We've attempted other consults, but none are within immediate reach. The situation is deteriorating rapidly. Her vitals are unstable. The team is prepped and waiting, but we need your hands. Sir, her life is on the line. The management is counting on you. Please report ASAP. Michael let the phone rest on his thigh, staring into the quiet as if the message had carved a hole through him. Veronica slowly sat up beside him. Another one? She asked softly, already knowing the answer. He nodded, rubbing his eyes. They lost the attending, she's crashing. They're asking me to take over immediately. There was a pause, a stillness not born of anger, but of exhaustion. Veronica looked at him, eyes searching his. I'll be back, he said, voice low, apologetic. I have to go now. No one else can get there in time. She reached for his hand, gripped it, and gave a tired, gentle nod.
Go.
Save her, she whispered. But come back to me. Michael stood, already pulling on his scrubs, his hospital badge clinking as it clipped to his coat. His phone buzzed again. Another update. The oar was ready. As he reached the door, he turned one last time. And in Veronica's eyes, he saw something new, not anger. Not even hurt, but the quiet ache of a woman who was learning to love a man that the world kept borrowing. He stepped out into the cool morning, and she was alone again. But this time, something deeper had shifted.
Please subscribe.
It was already dark when the ambulance pulled up outside their home. The red and blue lights reflected off the windows like a quiet siren of sorrow. The back door opened slowly, and Michael stepped out, not with the urgency of a doctor, but the weariness of a man who had given everything and still lost. He moved like a ghost through the door, his hands trembling slightly, the creases beneath his eyes deeper than ever. His scrubs were stained, sweat, stress, and hours of relentless effort soaked into the fabric like a second skin. Veronica, who had been pacing the floor since mid-afternoon, rushed to the door as it clicked open. She reached for him, gently touched his arm. He looked at her, his eyes hollow. What happened, love? She asked softly, afraid of the answer. Michael dropped onto the couch, elbows on knees, hands cupping his face. After a long silence, he finally muttered, voice cracked and low. It was a bad experiment. Veronica blinked. The patient? Michael nodded slowly. Pancreatic cancer.
Male.
Late presentation. The family, they couldn't afford the earlier scans. Couldn't settle bills in time. By the time we got him on the table, the tumor had spread. Multiple organ involvement. The procedure took 13 hours. He looked up, eyes glistening. We lost him. Too many complications. Too much damage. Too late. Veronica sat beside him, her hands wrapping around his. She let the silence breathe before speaking. That's tragic. But not your fault. I feel for the family and I know you did everything you could. Michael shook his head, bitter. I tried my best. I really did. But maybe I'm just not good enough with that kind of stuff. Maybe if the other doctor had been available, he might have saved the man. Veronica's eyes sharpened. No, she said firmly, gripping his chin and turning his face toward hers. Don't. Don't you dare do that to yourself. You gave 13 hours of your life for a man you never met. You've been running on empty, carrying people who aren't even yours to carry. If anyone could have saved him, it was you, Michael." He closed his eyes. "But this is what hurts me most," she continued, her voice cracking, "that this hospital, this endless machine, keeps stealing the man I married. Every beep, every message, every siren, they get more of you than I do. And I'm tired of competing with stretchers and scalpels for your heart." Michael's breath caught. He looked at her, really looked. Then, like a man returning from war, he pulled her into his arms and whispered into her hair. "Then hear this. Tomorrow, even if the president's wife is dying, I won't leave you. I'm taking you out for lunch. You and me. Just us. No calls. No scrubs. No emergencies." Veronica pulled back, her eyes lighting up like city lights in a blackout. "You mean that?" He smiled for the first time that day. "With all I've got left." Veronica grinned, her hand tracing his jaw. "Then I can't wait for my date." And in that moment, sorrow and healing met in silence. Not every life could be saved, but some loves could be salvaged.
Please subscribe.
For the first time in months, the night in the Martins' home was undisturbed. No shrieking phones, no buzzing pagers, no alarms from dying machines. Just the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the steady, soothing rhythm of two hearts finally in sync. Michael had done the unthinkable. He had turned off his phone. Deliberately. He had looked at it for a long moment, hesitated, and then pressed the button. Just like that, he shut the world out, every siren, every call, every possible emergency. Veronica had watched him do it, and her heart had fluttered in her chest like a schoolgirl seeing her crush walk into class. They slept deep, whole, restful sleep, the kind that repairs not just the body, but the soul. By 7:30 a.m., sunlight poured into their bedroom. Michael, still half asleep, stretched and yawned like a man who had nothing chasing him. Then, with mild hesitation and a mischievous grin, he reached for his phone and powered it back on. Within seconds, the screen exploded with notifications. 57 missed calls. 23 text messages. Hospital. Urgent. Report to the board immediately. Submit formal documentation on pancreatic surgery case. Recommendations required for future protocol. Another. Dr. Michael, your presence is required without delay for post-op briefing. Management needs your analysis today. Another. Your absence is noted. Kindly prioritize hospital duties over personal breaks. He stared at the screen, unfazed. Then he winked. Veronica, brushing her hair near the mirror, caught it. "What was that wink for?" she asked, turning, eyes playful. Michael turned the phone around, showing her the avalanche of missed calls and urgent hospital texts. "They're calling me in again," he said nonchalantly. Her smile faltered. "Already?" But then he shrugged. "Don't mind them." He walked toward her slowly, eyes twinkling. Nothing stops my date today. The report can wait till tomorrow. It's not an emergency." He paused, then cleared his throat theatrically and mimicked a hospital operator's urgent voice. Code red. "Dr. Michael, you're needed immediately for a critical lunch date with Veronica. Patient shows signs of being severely underromanced. Symptoms include laughter withdrawal and kiss deficiency. Immediate treatment required." Veronica burst out laughing so hard she nearly dropped her hairbrush. "You're impossible," she screamed between giggles. He ducked as she picked up a throw pillow and launched it at him. He grabbed it midair, tossed it back, and the house became a playground. She chased him from the bedroom to the kitchen, laughing, breathless, radiant. "Get back here, Dr. Emergency." He let her catch him. Right there, in the hallway, they kissed like it was their first date. And for the first time, in a very, very long time, Veronica knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that she hadn't made a mistake marrying him. Not even close. Please subscribe. That morning, as the sun arched slowly into its noonday brilliance, Dr. Michael leaned against the kitchen counter, watching Veronica prepare tea. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Hey," he whispered, "don't eat too much." Veronica raised a brow. And why not, doctor? Because I plan to fill your bowels with nothing but delicious delicacies today, he teased with a smirk. I'm talking lobster tails, creamy mushroom pasta, grilled salmon topped with the finest non-alcoholic wine our bank account can handle. You'll need room. She chuckled, amused and touched. You always talk like you're prescribing romance. He kissed her cheek. Because love is medicine, babe. And today you're the patient. They stepped out into the warm day, laughter tucked between them like an old favorite song. Michael jingled the car keys, but instead of unlocking the driver's side, he tossed them toward her. You're driving, he said with mock authority. Me? Veronica blinked. Dr. Michael, are you sure you want to survive this date? I've survived worse. Scalpel slips. Angry nurses. You behind the wheel? Let's call it adventure. She laughed, shook her head, and got behind the wheel. They drove through the city, leaving the chaos behind, until they reached the outskirts. Quiet roads, greener trees, fewer horns. A beautiful lakeside glimmered in the distance, cradling an elegantly decorated restaurant nestled in a tranquil cove. As they stepped out of the car, both of them slowed, eyes drawn to the familiar scenery. Do you remember? Michael asked softly. How could I forget? Veronica replied. This was our first date spot. Same restaurant. Same view. He smiled. You wore that red dress. And you were sweating like a goat because you spilled wine on your white shirt, she grinned. They walked in hand, hearts warmed by memory. But just as they approached the maitre d', Michael froze and patted his pockets. Then again. And again. Oh no. Veronica turned confused. What is it? I left my phone and my credit card. I was in such a rush I must have dropped them back at the house. He grimaced, shaking his head. Unbelievable. And I really wanted this to be perfect. Veronica stood still for a second, then slowly opened her handbag with a theatrical flair. She reached in and pulled out his phone and his wallet. See ya. Here we go. Oh, she sang, holding them up like a magician finishing her trick. Michael stared in shock, then burst out laughing. He grabbed her, spinning her in a warm, relieved hug. That's my girl. You're too predictable, she teased, brushing imaginary dust off her shoulder. Seated at a lakeside window, they ordered a lavish meal, stuffed chicken breasts in herb sauce, truffle butter shrimp, Caesar salad, and 2 glasses of sparkling pomegranate wine. The scent alone was intoxicating. Their table glowed with candlelight, the air filled with quiet instrumental music. For the first time in forever, they were just 2 people in love again, no hospitals, no emergencies. Just soul-deep conversation, lingering touches, and quiet joy. But then, just as Michael raised his glass to toast, something shifted in Veronica's face. She stopped mid-laugh, and her hand went to her stomach. He noticed immediately. Are you okay? He asked. She blinked, nodding faintly, then paled. I think I need the restroom. Just give me a minute. She stood slowly, gripping the edge of the table briefly before walking off. Michael watched her disappear behind the swinging door. And just like that, the perfect lunch wasn't so perfect anymore. Veronica returned from the restroom with a smile. Feeling better? Michael asked, looking up with concern. She nodded lightly. Yes, it was nothing. Just a little cramp. Must be the excitement, or the wine on an empty stomach. He exhaled, visibly relieved. Thank God. She reached for his hand across the table. Now, doctor, let's eat. Before your date dies of hunger. They shared a soft laugh, then picked up their cutlery, finally savoring the exquisite aroma of the food before them. Each bite was a celebration. Of survival, of love, of today. Just as Michael was about to feed her a spoonful of dessert, the door of the restaurant creaked open again. A young couple entered, hand in hand, giggling, eyes drunk on each other. The woman, vibrant in a sunflower yellow dress, rested her head momentarily on her partner's shoulder. They whispered sweet nothings and slid into the table beside Michael and Veronica. Michael smiled as he watched them. That was us once. Veronica teased. Correction. That's still us. The young couple placed their order, chatting, laughing, completely lost in each other. Then suddenly,
Bang.
a loud thud echoed across the restaurant. The young man had collapsed onto the tiled floor. His chair screeched backward, toppling noisily behind him. Say. Oh my God, say. The girl screamed, kneeling beside him, her voice cracking with panic. In an instant, chaos unraveled. The quiet ambience shattered into screaming, shouting, and frantic footsteps. Waiters rushed forward. Customers stood, dazed and helpless. The air was thick with confusion, fear, and rising hysteria. Michael's fork paused midair. He didn't move. Veronica turned toward him slowly. Her eyes were soft at first, pleading. Michael. He looked down at his plate. Suppose we weren't here. What would they do? She was quiet for a second, then replied in a calm whisper. But thank God we are here. Still, he didn't budge. Then she leaned in closer and, with a voice full of soft command, whispered, Michigan love, stand up now. Go and save that man. Michael looked at her, his eyes weighed down with frustration and fatigue. I came here to save you, Vero. Nothing less and nothing more. Her jaw tightened. She clenched her fist, her tone shifting. Michael, if that man dies and you sit here doing nothing, I will never forgive you. He clenched his jaw. Am I God, Veronica? His voice cracked. We doctors only care. But only God heals. She stared deep into his soul. Then forget me, she said, her voice steady. Go and care for that man. That's why I married you. That was all it took. Dr. Michael rose. Gone was the husband. Gone was the lover. What stood now was the man who had taken the Hippocratic Oath. A man who had buried exhaustion under purpose more times than he could count. In 5 swift strides, he reached the unconscious young man, now foaming slightly at the mouth, his body convulsing lightly. Michael knelt beside him. Roll him to the side, he instructed calmly, already checking the man's pulse. Do you know him? What happened? He asked the panicked girl beside him. We just came from lunch. He said he felt dizzy. He collapsed. I don't know. He has ulcers. He took something earlier. Michael examined his pupils. Dilated. Irregular pulse. Food poisoning? Drug reaction? Stroke? He began emergency first aid, loosening the man's collar, checking his breathing, tilting his head slightly to clear his airway. Someone call an ambulance. Now, he commanded. A waiter rushed off. Michael placed his ear near the man's chest, counted heartbeats under his breath, and began light chest compressions, then stopped as the pulse became steadier. The man gasped sharply. Michael held him steady, talking calmly to bring him back to awareness. Stay with me. Okay. You'll be all right. Murmurs of awe rippled across the room as the man blinked and weakly nodded. The restaurant that had been thrown into turmoil moments ago now held its breath in reverent silence. The girl sobbed with relief. Oh my God. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Michael helped lift the man into a sitting position, resting him carefully against a wall. The man was stable, but clearly in need of urgent medical attention. Michael turned toward his wife, and without even asking, she was already holding out her car keys. Her voice was firm, but kind. Michael, your hospital is nearby. Please take them. I'll find my way home. She smiled softly, holding back tears. We'll come back for our date. Maybe tomorrow. But this man's life is irreplaceable. Michael hesitated, his heart torn. Then he nodded solemnly. He helped the young man up with another bystander supporting the other side and turned to Veronica. Vero, pack our food. Be careful as you go home. I'll be back soon. She nodded. I know. He kissed her forehead quickly, then disappeared out the door, guiding the now semi-conscious man and his weeping girlfriend into the car. Moments later, the sound of tires peeling off cut through the quiet as Dr. Michael zoomed into the horizon with yet another soul in his care.